Hi, George Durkee with Columbia College, and this is for our Geography 61 Introduction to Incident Mapping class. And in this first video, we're going to do a fire map based on a fire from last August in Tuolumne County. And I've previously taught the class using ArcGIS Desktop, and I'm switching over to Arc Pro for this class. So this will be step by step, where I want you guys to follow along, create a map, and then print it as a PDF, and that's what you'll send to me. The Moke Fire started in August over by the Moccasin Reservoir on Highway 120, and it spread pretty quickly. And there's a couple of types of maps that you find on any kind of incident, but especially on fire incidents. Fire has it pretty well organized. They've been using GIS since the mid-90s, and it's very structured. They have templates, they have workflows, and that's what I want you guys to see, the different types of maps and the workflow involved, because it's very likely you'll never do an incident map, and of course, you know, that's what I expect. But I just want you guys to see how the workflow is kind of the same for any kind of GIS project that you do. You have a theme, you have information you want to show, you have data you want to show, and so then how do you gather the data and how do you put it on a map so that it can be easily understood by your audience. And so each step of the way there, you've got to be thinking about what you want to show. And then finally, you want the minimum amount of data. You don't want to clutter up your maps. So for instance, here is what's called an IAP map. That's the Incident Action Plan. And that's given to every fire crew that goes out into the field, as well as the overhead, the incident command people. And it shows just the basics here. It shows the fire and how it's divided up, the various symbology, which we'll learn about here a little later. And the map usually runs 8 by 12 or 8 by 17 on larger paper. And it shows the status of the fire at the start of the day usually. And there's all types of maps. There's briefing maps in addition to the IAP map, where they're large enough to be seen by a crew gathered around for the morning briefing or afternoon briefing, depending on where the cycle they are. And again, it's pretty basic. We're going to take a lot of deviations from the basic fire map here. You'll notice that, for instance, there's a topographic map, but they've taken out all the colors, like green for vegetation and some of the other colors. That's to simplify it. We won't be doing that, but that's just to show you what you can do with the base map. And we'll have our own base map that you guys will use in addition to the Esri online base map. And of course, there's other types of maps. There's transportation maps, which tell people how to get to the incident and where specifically to go. And so they might be a map of all of California and show the main highways and how to get to your location. There's also aerial maps for helicopters and drop planes, so that they show especially any aerial structures in the way, cell towers, transmission lines, that sort of thing that might be a hazard to pilots. And then there's also public information maps. So this particular screenshot was done the second day of the Moccasin Fire, and I drew it on the Tuolumne County Public Fire Information site, which we set up so the public could see where the evacuation zones are, where they might be within an evacuation zone, and give them an idea of where the actual danger is. So you'll notice here we've got very approximately drawn in is the fire perimeter, and it's had quite a bit of potential on either side of the highway for you guys who have been up there. It goes uphill pretty steeply, and it goes uphill in brush. And so while the fire was only in this little area here, it had potential to go either north, northeast, or north or south west. And in this case, I put in all the structure layers, which we have as a separate vector file, and that gives you an idea of how many structures might have been in danger. So in any event, then you draw, the sheriff is the one who determines what the evacuation zones are in consultation with the fire folks, and then road closures. And so you just outline everything in red, what an evacuation zone is, and on the website you can type in your address and it'll zoom right into where you are in relation to the evacuation zone. So as the fire progresses, this map actually gets cleaned up quite a bit, but like I say, this was just on the morning of the second day after the fire broke out, and so it was just quickly to get something out to the public, put it online so they can see it with their phones or tablets or desktop computers. And this is a recent thing. I mentioned that in the intro to this class, is to get information to the public. So it's part of the whole evolution of what we can now do with maps. So before, we just had those paper maps I was just showing you for fire incidents, and now all of that is going online. In fact, the National Interagency Fire Center is moving most of their maps online. I mean, they're still doing paper maps, of course, especially for briefings and things like that, but the information is all being stored in a central database and displayed to anyone in the country that needs to see it. And I also mentioned earlier, the same is true of search and rescue. We'll be doing that in about 10 days. We'll be doing a SAR map to show you what's involved in a SAR. So for our map, we will draw the perimeter of the fire. We'll create points, lines, and polygons to show the perimeter, to estimate the size in acres of the fire, and we'll go over what a lot of these symbols mean here. So, and then you'll have a legend telling what they are. But the great thing about standardized symbology, which fire and SAR both have, is that once you learn it, then you really don't need the legend, though of course you'll probably always have one. But so for instance, we see H1 and a blue dot here, and that's pretty much always the symbol for a helispot. And the dark black dots here, DP, is a drop point, so that's where teams can be brought in and dropped and go out from there. And that's also part of a transportation type map too, is how to get to the drop points for everyone to be in the same place and then be assigned. And then this map also has what's going on with the fire. So the symbol for active fire is the line with the little lines pointing inward towards the fire. Controlled fire is usually shown with a black line here, and then you divide the fire up into sections for the teams who are responsible for that. So you divide it up by divisions, and that's shown by a division break, which are these symbols here. And then you have a branch break. For each branch is a large section of the fire. And so again, that's to divide it up easily for everyone to know where they're assigned. So this is roughly the map we're going to aim for here. Oh, and here's also the symbol for a dozer line. So notice that the dozer line is being built away from where the active fire is. The idea is that the fire has the potential to reach that area, and so they put in, use bulldozer or even hand lines depending on the terrain well ahead of the fire in the hopes that they can stop it there. And for that they sometimes use roads or other natural breaks, and especially in all of the foothill counties, a lot of the ridges have large, very wide lines put in, and then they're refreshed every few years to keep them clear of brush. So we'll just make this basic map here. I'm not too concerned with whether you follow this exactly, but we'll do some of the symbology here. We will use what are called domains, where when you enter into a field, you'll have a drop down with standardized names, and that makes it easier to create a symbol to go with that particular domain name. So if you filled it in by hand, you might misspell it, and that would in turn mess up the symbol for it, because it wouldn't know what symbol to apply. So this automates a lot of the process when we create a domain. And that probably doesn't mean much now, but I'll show you how to do it, and it's a good skill and knowledge to have for all sorts of other GIS projects. So that's the end of the first video here, the introduction, and in the next video we'll move on to loading your data and setting up ArcGIS Pro, and then we'll start drawing the map. So thanks. Talk to you in the next video.